Simone and Kojo, serving you music, sharing stories with you here on Fantastic Mornings. Fantastic Radio UK, home of possibilities.
Legendary beats.
Me, I know they like the drama. Me, I know they like the drama. I did promise you respect and honor. You got my number, all you got to do.
Good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to you, Simone.
Good morning, Kojo, Bonti, and Moko.
How are you doing?
Right. I'm good.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's Friday.
I know.
Friday. It's Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday. I'm so excited. How do you spend your Fridays? Are you this type of person who also really like Fridays, Simone?
Yes, used to, of course, because of course, you know, we had the working week. You'd have the working week.
Yes.
Most of it would be office bound, but I think, you know, to the latter point, we were doing remote working anyway before lockdowns and all this whole event. The company I was working for, they were doing, you know, a ratio of a few days in the office and a few days at home. So I had that kind of balance for a good year or two when they introduced it. And yeah, so Friday still was like, yes, I can plan something for the weekend, try and fit something constructive or just respite for those 2 days that you get to yourself or with others. So yeah, it was nice to wind down on a Friday, 5 o'clock, just like, and there's a little bit of clock watching, of course, you know, at that stage, you just want to leave and finish work and get your time back really for yourself and family. So that's how it was for me. Yeah.
I see.
How about you?
Sorry?
How about you? How's Fridays to you? What does that mean to you?
Friday means preparing for the following week. Friday is very good, as Friday is all about also doing something different. You know, taking, you know, just chilling out, wearing trainers and running around and, you know, just chilling out. You know, if I have to go for a walk, I go for a walk. If I have to go play tennis, I go play tennis. If I have to go play with my friends, I visit my friends and, you know, do something very different from radio or advertising or work, just to be able to give me those variety, really, so that it's sort of add spice to my life. You know what I mean? So that anytime I can come to the table with something, because you sort of get caught in this cocoon where you're doing something all the time and it's very formalized and it's very structured.
And autopilot as well, really, to be on autopilot, you know, you just want to sort of try and wind down or do things at your own pace, hopefully, in those 2 days.
Absolutely.
You know? So
Absolutely. So I've just taken on running. I used to be run many years ago, but with time and with the whole COVID thing, I sort of wind down and went to the shop, the sports shop, and got myself a new trainer, got myself all the kits and, you know, got myself ready. However, I have to confess, and that's a confession right there, I haven't been able to been consistent with it, because sometimes you wake up in the morning and you got all sorts of things that you got to deal with, and you feel, okay, right, I will do the running next week, I'll do the running following week. So in the morning, I'll go for a quick run, because there's a huge park behind where I live. So I'll go have a run, then later on have a shower, then I can start the day. But all things being equal, next week, I'm looking at getting back to it and getting into the swing of things and, you know, doing something different to coming. You know, the funny thing about running, I remember many years ago when I used to run, in the mornings, my friends would come through and we'll go running, because I had a huge bunch of men, women who would want to go running. So they created a small Facebook network. So we all connect and we all go for a morning run, or in the evening when I come back from work, I'll go for a run. And 2 of them have still kept on doing it. And this is about 4 or 5 years ago, and these characters have really kept at it. And the last time I saw them in town, I said to them, you guys are really getting on with it. And I was so pleased to have seen them. So that's how I, do the weekend. I chill out, do different things, and I'll go play tennis from time to time. Or if I have to go play golf, I'll go in and play golf. My friend who I play golf with is traveled, but he's gonna come back. We're gonna go in and do something different. I wouldn't say I'm a Tiger Woods. I wouldn't say I'm Tiger Woods.
Oh yeah, because I've not seen you featured on TV yet. So yeah, I
What did you say?
I've not seen you featured on TV yet, so I'm guessing you're not Tiger Woods standard. But you could be shortly behind him. So we'll still watch this space just in case Kojo appears on TV on one day.
Listen, that is me, Montiawanko and Simone Uncle having a conversation. 6 minutes past 7. Welcome to the Fantastic Mornings. We're going to do this till 8 o'clock. Our special guest today is Mr. Rasheed Ogunlaru, life coach, business coach, great friend to this team and great friend to this radio station. We are very excited to have Rasheed Ogunlaru coming through. In the meantime, you can listen to us on tunein at www.tunein.com/fantasticradio, or you can now go on all the app stores to the Apple App Store and Google Play App Store. Download the app and you will be able to listen to Simone, myself straight away. And again, we have just been launched on Sonos Radio. So Sonos Radio, you can go into Curry's or any other platform, any shop, and buy the Sonos Radio. It's an internet radio, and you can buy that one, and you can listen to us Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Myself and Simone Uncle, we're going to have a dive, come back, have a conversation, and I will tell you something I discovered just 2 hours ago. Let's go, Mr. Sina Hamidi.
Simone and Kojo on Fantastic Mornings, 7 to 8 a.m. Join the conversation at fantasticradio.co.uk.
The track you just heard comes from the irreplaceable, uncomparable, the remarkable, the fantastic master storyteller. Simone, who was that?
Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson. Do you know what I like about this Michael Jackson track and Michael Jackson as a person? As interesting as his story was, and we wish him all the best, his family all the best. But Michael Jackson was a very interesting young man, or an interesting person who was not afraid to be different. With all the challenges that he went through, with all the drama that he went through or he presented to the world, Mr. Jackson, to me and for me, Mr. Jackson reminded me of a person who was not afraid to embrace himself. He wasn't afraid to say, I want to try something different. Yes, he, according to certain psychologists and other people, Michael Jackson had issues, and who doesn't have one? I do have one. I have issues that I'm dealing with, right? And Mr. Jackson, for me, was a man who learned how to push the boundaries. He found different ways of doing things different, despite his weaknesses and his frailties and everything that people said. He was ready to put himself on trial. Right. And one thing that shone through Mr. Jackson was about the opposite many thought that he had issues with self-confidence and self-love and everything. But for me, on the flip side, I kind of feel Mr. Jackson also had a good sense of himself. So I look at when people say, oh, he has issues and he went through life with all sorts of challenges. But I also looked at it on the other side, where I felt this man had so much confidence in himself to say, listen, I want to do something different. I want to also trust myself and make mistakes. I am ready to have that confidence in myself to say, I'm not going to let what people would say or my own vulnerabilities and my own weaknesses to deny me of my own authenticity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is what that draws me close to Mr. Jackson. You know, the way he was able to allow himself to trust himself as he went through. Of course, you know, there were a few accusations here and there, but Mr. Jackson at any given time, for me,
mm-hmm.
gave me this sound of a person who was assured, who was confident, and he never let anything whatsoever deny him of anything that he wanted to achieve. This morning, our guest will be sharing with us, and we'll be getting into what really causes us to not trust ourselves. Our special guest, Rasheed Ogunlaru, will come through and speak and share with us and give us tidbits and, coming with some few information as to what is it? What is self-trust? What is self-confidence? What goes into it? Let me know, rant on and carry on talking, because I am no life coach. I don't know all these things. I don't know all.
That's what we've got Rasheed for.
Sorry?
That's what we've got Rasheed for.
That is what we've got Rasheed
Absolutely.
for.
Yeah. He's going to teach us more.
Rasheed for 12 past 7. We go get some music, come back, Rasheed joins us, and we're going to have a blast. Let's go, Mr. Hamidi.
It's about empowerment, education, and entertainment. Fantastic Radio UK, the home of possibilities.
Que tiene tu mirar que me provoca.
Welcome back. Simone, before Rasheed joins us, what is your thing about self-trust? What's your 2 cents about it? What do you think about it? What's your 2 cents about self-trust? Randomly,
it's, and I could be completely wrong. It might be a combination of things, of confidence, self-awareness, and I say self-awareness not necessarily in an egotistical kind of sense. It's almost like being aware of your trigger points, the good and the bad.
I like that.
And being able to trust those instincts. An instinct, maybe, if I need to just put it into one word. There are formal definitions of self-trust and what it means to be it or feel it. There's one that just says self-trust means that we can take care of our needs and safety.
Right.
It means that we trust ourselves to survive situations and practice kindness, not perfection. That's almost bringing it to a state where you're feeling vulnerable, but not in a fight or flight sense. It is more about, I'm aware of a certain feeling or trigger point, and I need to maybe realign, and a realignment could take, again, find meditation, or you go out for a run, or, read a book. Listen to a podcast by Rasheed Ogunlaru. All those things. So, there's different ways to manage or other tools. And we'll find out more tools from Rasheed about how he speaks to his clients and what he imparts to them.
Wonderful.
As a guideline. So yeah, that's my definition.
I love it. No. I love it. I love it. And what whilst I was researching for this morning, what I picked up, there isn't one set definition to self-trust and self-confidence.
Makes sense.
There isn't any set path and definite way it has to be, because everybody is on their path. Everybody reflects and approaches life from their own viewpoint, from the direction of how they look at life. And it will be very wrong for us to ever define self-confidence and self-trust and trusting the self with one particular jacket to say, listen, I think I'm talking too much. Let me stop talking. We are going to get some music again, right? And as soon as we come back, it would have been 18 past 7. Rasheed Ogunlaru joins us, and I'm looking forward for such a brilliant, fantastic morning. Mr. Hamidi, let's get some music and we're right.
Simone and Kojo on Fantastic Mornings, 7 to 8 a.m. Join the conversation at fantasticradio.co.uk.
Manu Dibango is who you heard doing Makosa. Manu Dibango doing what he does best. Remarkable saxophonist. Remarkable. I think he comes from Congo. Congo. Wonderful gentleman. Rasheed Ogunlaru is just round the corner, and we will be talking. Here we go. Good morning to you, Mr. Rasheed Ogunlaru. Rasheed, good morning.
Very good morning, Kojo. Very good morning, Simone. I've been enjoying your already. You don't need me to say a word about it.
No, we definitely need you today. Yeah. You're not getting out of it that easily.
Guys, listen, it's 18 past 7, and I'm here with a life coach, business coach, speaker, conference host, author, everything in between, television, radio, and he's spending the next few minutes with us talking to us about trusting the self and learning to trust self. And I would want to formally say good morning to Rasheed Ogunlaru. And for those of you, before we go any further, if you want to know more about Rasheed, you go to www.rasaru, as in rasaru.com, and everything he will be sharing with us can also be followed up. Get it from there. He's got a book out. He's got music. He's got stuff in there that I know you would love. Good morning to you, Mr. Ogunlaru. How are you doing, and how have you been?
I'm very, very well. It's funny when people call me Mr. Ogunlaru. Maybe it's an age thing, but that's good. No, it's great. I'm really glad to be here. Lovely to be here. And I can't believe it's the first time. I think it's the first time I'm here.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Yes.
Delight to be here with you both, and you're both making it a nice, warm, energetic, sunny morning.
Right.
Yeah.
Rush, before can you talk to us about where does self-confidence, where does it come from?
Right. Well, the first thing we need to ask ourselves, what do we mean by the self? What do we mean by the self? Because when we think about all these words, self-confidence, self-belief, self-trust, self-esteem, and so on, one of the core words is self. So what is the self? And it depends how deep we want to go. So, I guess on the one hand, you could say the self is that person and their personality, their characteristics and their traits, and all of those elements around them. And a lot of that, if you think about it, a lot of that is conditioned over time, isn't it? It's shaped over time via our life, by our upbringing, by our the beliefs and values that we're given and that we gather together. So Just means that all of these things are part of the cluster of what becomes the self.
Right.
And then people find themselves either feeling, in broad terms, comfortable with that idea of that notion of who they are themselves, or uncomfortable with it, or wrestling with the self. So just, I mean, what we're talking about here is partly somebody's personality, their identity, their identification. So it's really interesting. So when it comes to things like somebody's self-confidence and self-trust and so on, a lot of that might depend on how they feel about themselves. So somebody's perception of themselves, the reality of performance and how able they are may well be very radically differing kind of things. So we've got something here which is quite kind of complex. So the invitation really is for somebody to begin to consider, well, who am I? How do I feel at ease with myself? And that's where all the words like self-trust and all of these other things come into play, you know, just to begin to set the table here.
I see. How does our upbringing play a part in that?
So, I mean, first of all, you've got certain things that are innate, aren't they? There are certain characteristics that are innately there. And often there are a few elements of somebody's personality that their parents and someone will say was there very early on. They were cheeky, they were quiet, they were retiring and so on. So you've got some things that are kind of inbuilt, the genetics and all of that kind of stuff. There's some things, personality, that would seem to be almost innate. And then what you've got then we've got, you know, a lot of potential, haven't it? We've got the mind, we've got the body and all of that stuff. And the mind early on is, relatively speaking, an open book. And then we're trained, we're taught our name, we're taught language, we're taught ideas about the world and so on. And then those things will, you know, the things that we're taught and the things we experience then shape our worldview. In broad terms, it might have been a nurturing upbringing, it might have been a difficult upbringing and so on. And then we find ourselves with this basket full of ideas about who we are and about the world around us.
Right.
This basket full of skills and talents. Now, if the basket full of ideas that we have about ourselves, and depending how we've been taught about ourselves, if they've been nurturing, then I'm going to broadly have good self-esteem, self-confidence, and so on. If I've been taught I'm worthless, etc., 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 I might have a far more difficulty developing myself and moving further forward. So it's that combination between that classic thing between nature and nurture, isn't it? It's going to be that blend between nature and nurture, and then the personality bit. That person's unique personality is going to be an interesting element as well.
Interesting, Rush. You know, I mean, what I like about what you're saying, it's about the whole environment and what a person is been exposed to and how they have also allowed themselves to go through. But I wanted to speak into the person who never had those affirmations, those confirmations, and those endorsement, and they go through life with this sort of challenge. How do they find their way out? Right, the person who never had it, who never had that mommy daddy love and all the rest of it, and it's affected that self-confidence, that self-trust. Where does that person go, or what can that person do to come into that self-confidence? Obviously it's not bespoke, it's everybody's different, so there has to be, you know, that variations of solutions. But what would you recommend, Rash?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that earlier on when you were both setting up this theme today, Simone talked about the importance of self-awareness. So I guess with the self-awareness. So my tip would be begin to ask yourself questions like, who am I? How much of my life story seems to sit with me and resonates with me? If lots of things don't seem to fit with you, or if you've been wrestling with it, then that gives you an opportunity to look afresh at who it is that you are. Okay. So really what my tip is to go back and as early as you can remember, you're not going to have many thoughts or ideas about the world. Your memory might go back to about 3 or 4, and there might be some basic memories. And then from there, pretty much your ideas about the world and who you are shaped by your environment. Now, the good thing about that, if certain things haven't resonated with you, is that then you can realize that all this baggage, because it will probably be baggage if it hasn't resonated with you, stuff, all these ideas, all of this, maybe even through to indoctrination, if it doesn't necessarily resonate with you, you can ask yourself, well, which of all of this stuff that I've been taught about who I am seems to resonate with me? There's a true story that I tell really briefly here that happened once. That somebody who'd heard one of my talks called Become Who You Are, which is basically about really retracing our steps of who it is that we are. Anyway, I asked him a few questions. He told me his life story, and basically from early on, he'd been written off. He was being told that he wouldn't amount to anything in his life, and all of this stuff. And then at the end, I asked him a question. I asked him, how much of your life story has got anything to do with you? He paused, said almost none of it. In other words, all of that stuff fell away. He became disillusioned. The illusion around who he is,
right?
All those ideas fell away, and he realized that those things were what I was taught. I was told about myself. Those stories, those narratives. So there's who you are, and then there's the narrative of who you are.
Right. Right. Now, Rash, can you say that again? Can you please say that again? There is who you are.
There's who you are. And then there's the narrative of who you are. Now, there's going to be probably several narratives. Your narrative, the parents' narrative, your boss's narrative, and the main narrative you carry on in your head. So, you know what I mean? But they are not necessarily the reality. The danger sometimes we get so much caught up in what it is that we think, rather than what it is, do you know what I mean? So the thought may not always necessarily be helpful. What we're talking about here is what I would call brushing the dust away from the flower. If you've been wrestling with these things, first of all, realize that you're already an innate whole human being with your, however it is life has configured you, whatever shape, size, color, creed, background you are already a rounded human being with all sorts of potential and talent.
Right.
Your current mindset may or may not be serving you, and it's important to bear in mind that's based on all of that conditioning and or your upbringing and your own experiencing and then your own habits. But you can tweak those things or look completely afresh at it and begin to perhaps, very often what people have been told about themselves it defines them, and often it confines them.
Defines and confines them.
It defines them and it often confines them.
Interesting.
Does that mean they almost feel like compartmentalized or put into a box, if anything, or they might put themselves there even because, like you said, there's a level of self-perception in there as well as other people's viewpoints of you, of us.
Absolutely. If you think about it very early on, think about the phrases people, I'm no good at this, no good at that, no good at maths, I'm not a good person, blah, blah, blah. Those broad generalisms that somebody may have been taught very early on in life about who they are, and that they just tend to stick. And often that they may not have been looked at gently, or we've gone into super analyze rather than just to look at that. If you can say, I often say, Simone, in really simple terms, that if somebody's been wrestling with an identity of who they are for a long time, then that cannot be who they are. Imagine for a moment, a jumper. You've got a jumper or whatever, it's too tight or it's too loose. Clearly it doesn't fit you. So if you've been wrestling with an identity, that ain't you, because it's not sitting with you.
It's certainly not comfortable. So it's sometimes almost trying to break out that skin, or a bit of reinvention maybe, but not into a kind of but still being true to yourself, really. Trying to find the real you, or that kind of dynamic of your personality. You're speaking about the nature and nurture side of things, which is wonderful because some of us have had that, and we've had the wonderful, parenting. Some of us have lacked that or not received that at all, which is very, I understand can be quite traumatizing, especially to, and maybe you found some of your clients have found it a bit traumatizing to go back. Like you said, have to revisit certain things in the past in order to arrive at where they are at present point. You also speak about spirit and humanity, I think, in quite a bit of your work, especially with your company called Soul Trader Biz, and of course in your book Soul Trader itself. And you speak about prioritizing the heart of servitude. Am I getting this right? To enrich lives, hearts and minds, not just your own, but by giving out, you receive back. And you're sort of speaking more on a spirituality point from that level. And just wondering if you might maybe expand upon that and also explain how that helps people in business, not just in relationships and life.
Wonderful. I mean, in broad terms, I often say there's kind of two things going on. There's the head and the heart. We've been talking a lot about the get somebody's idea of who they are. And then there's the heart, and we know it, isn't it? That sometimes we just bypass all of the, and we just connect with somebody as on that human level of who they are at heart. It's almost hard to put into language, but we know it when we feel it, when we feel that we've been cared for or nurtured, or somebody really sees us. So sometimes it's possible, think about that, when somebody meets us and then they're not caught up in all of that narrative. Take, for example, very, very good example, a young person who's been told that they're no good and all of this, and then somebody else meets them and they just see this particular person who may have troubles and challenges, but they don't buy into that narrative. Suddenly that person can connect to them in that particular way. So I have a saying that, somebody once described me as thought-provoking, and I said that I'd rather go down as somebody who's thought-disposing, who needs more thoughts. So the invitation sometimes is to connect back to the heart. Do you know what I mean? I have a saying, I might sound like I'm speaking riddles, but it makes it in a nice way. I have a saying, care about people, yes. Care about how people feel, of course. Care about what people think, beware. Because what people think is based on their conditioning. What they think today might be completely different to what they think tomorrow, based on whether you've been on that day or whatever. From the heart, we're able to recognize that we're all human beings on this beautiful experience, and that we all have our different backgrounds, the different ideas that we carry, the different ideals, the different beliefs, the different philosophies, and we're different. And that's part of the beauty of life. Think about it. Otherwise, we get caught up in this battling, even within one family, even within people from the same part of the world. There can be, all of that ideological stuff that separates people, be it politics, be it religion, but below all of that, there is a court below whatever somebody thinks about the world and life is life as it actually is, and that is not dependent on what I think, which often we forget. Imagine, like, when you're a baby, the life from the world is not dependent on what they think, because the thinking hasn't built up. We just become so attuned to think. Thought as sovereign. Thought is just one tool that we have at our disposal. Thought is one last thing I want to say at this point is language is our greatest contribution to understanding and misunderstanding. Language, because if I say, one person says self-confidence, they think one thing. One person, another says, one person, you know what I mean? So language, even, and that's where the heart then becomes useful, because then I can just connect with that person at heart, putting aside what I might think at that moment.
The language that you just talked about takes me into a space that we're going to get the language of music. And let's get the language of music, come back, and you were going to talk to us about the trusting of the self and how people who've gone through traumatizing experiences during this COVID period, how they can take advantage of learning to retrust themselves. People have gone through moments where things haven't gone the way that they expected. COVID hit, lost jobs, lost loved ones. People would have to re-strategize, replan, and navigate through life from different angles. And let's get the language of music, right? And when we come back, you talk us through how people can bounce off and bounce up again in making things happen. Guys, it's 33 minutes past 7. We are with life coach Rasheed Ogunlaru.
You can now listen to us on the go by downloading the Fantastic Radio UK app on all app stores. Do a search now for Fantastic Radio UK.
Ode to Boobs by Pip Bishop. Dear Boobs, this heartfelt apology goes out to you all for moaning you're too big or moaning you're too small, for wishing you didn't hang like puppies in sacks or just disappear when we lie on our backs, for squashing you flat with a minimizing cut or those torture bras that push you right up. Why is it always your bad points we mention? like your inverted nips or your water retention. Why don't we love you as much as our men, or the babies that love you all over again? Maybe we're scared to show you we care, in case one day you're simply not there. Make it up to your boobs with some breakthrough breast cancer TLC. Touch, look and check. To find out more during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, visit breakthrough.org.uk.
We are so welcome. 35 minutes past 7, talking to life coach, business coach, the main man behind radio.garden. Rasheed has been sharing with us everything to do with self-trust, self-development, and learning to trust self. Rasheed, I would want you to talk to us about people who go through trauma and how trauma has a way of denying a person of themselves. Trauma causing people to redefine themselves and look at themselves differently. And I really want you to zoom in with COVID because it's really, really done damage. And I would love you to share with a person who is very at sea with everything. Because when it started, I'll tell you a funny thing. When it started, I bluffed my way through it. When the whole thing started, I bluffed my way through it. I felt it was a fad. It was just going to pass away and all the rest of it. But at some point, I felt this thing is going nowhere, particularly when Mr. Johnson asked us to stay at home and not go anywhere. And I realized I haven't seen my neighbor for some time, you know, and I had to be on the phone constantly calling people. And I felt, okay, so, this thing is so real. And I didn't realize how that had all of a sudden changed the way I view the world and, you know, informed me. Luckily, I had good friends who were coming, who would call and we would talk and, you know, extended conversations. But people, it wasn't everybody who had that luxury. Can you please talk to us about people who've gone through stuff and they're really struggling and it's affected their self-confidence? Some people have lost jobs and they've got to go back and look for work and they're not really too sure how to do that. What do they do? Talk to me about that, Rush.
Yeah. I mean, first of all, yeah, you're absolutely right. It's been a really, really tough year for so many people in so many different ways. So many people have lost loved ones or their health or even maybe their jobs and their confidence or maybe their support system, all sorts of things. And first thing to know is that the feelings of feeling low, unsure, frightened, stressed, depressed are very natural. I think the first thing to say here is one of the things that COVID reminded us is one of the things that we cleverly try and block out as human beings. That life, there's no guarantees, there's no certainties. We come and we go. And when COVID and really kicked in, many people were asking themselves really deep questions about who am I, what's really important in life, and they realized that the relationships and just caring and looking out for each other were really important. So lots of the other narrative, we suddenly dropped to one side as we remembered.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
You know, do you see what I mean? So this is really important for us to realize there's no guarantees, there's no certainties. So the real self-confidence, funny enough, begins when I realize that, okay, here I am. And all that there is in life, really, life is a combination of events, sensations, and then everything else, you know, we kind of decide whether it's this or that. There are some basics, of course, that we need: food, shelter, and so on. So really, if you think about with COVID, that brought that to the fore, isn't it? Food, shelter, some of those basic things, and so on. And then what you get to is that the importance of self-care. So my first tip to anybody who's going through a lot of difficulty at the moment is, first of all, that self-care. You know, just really taking that just time to take care of yourself and looking after your personal and your emotional health. Sometimes that you're not going to necessarily be at a point where you're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. So really just be kind to yourself is my first tip. Often as human beings, we're so tough on ourselves. I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. Know that how you're feeling is natural. If you're, and I think one of the next thing from the self-care is then support. Who do you have around you who can support you? I mean, the support systems are going to be very important, and don't be afraid to reach out for help, either from friends and family, if you're lucky enough to, or there are places that might well help people with emotional support, be it a place like the Samaritans that I used to be a volunteer, there's all sorts of different groups. There may well be community support and so on. So don't be afraid to reach out to the support that is actually out there. I think what's really, really important, and many people found that then, isn't it? It's taking care of your physical, your emotional, and your spiritual well-being. First of all, the body, trying to do whatever exercise you can to keep the body moving. Lots of us have been in and been, not moving much. Taking care of your emotional and your mental health is really important. Often we get so caught up in the diet of doom and gloom. Remember, the news is just actually some news. Some news. It's some news. And actually, the reality is, if you look outside of your door, very often you'll see, if you really look, you will actually every day see thousands and thousands of acts of kindness. And so my first tip is start every day with a large bowl of gratitude. What do you already have? What's already working? Maybe you've got body, maybe if you're breathing, if you have some food, if you have shelter, been grateful. We are so conditioned to look at what we do not have in place. So that's a bit like going shopping after, say, without looking at what's in the fridge and what's in the cupboard. So this is where really self-confidence and self-awareness really begin. What do I already have? Being really grateful for this gift of life, who I am, and so on, and having certain abilities and so on. And then I can begin to build from there. So sometimes you might need that quiet time, that still time in nature. Nature can be really useful if you're able to get outside. Lots of those things can be really good at calming the mind. So many people, it's interesting, have been drawn more to nature. They've been drawn to, think about all the people who just can't wait to get out to the park, the people who picked up meditation or yoga and all this kind of stuff. So the things that will quieten the mind, anything that quietens the mind, it might even be washing up that quietens your mind. I think that would be really, really, really helpful. But don't be afraid to reach out for certain support and start off with what you already have. What can you do? What are you really good at? Try and find people who give you nourishing feedback rather than people who are dragging you down. The life we seek has so much to do with the company that we keep. That then becomes absolutely crucial to your development, your self-esteem and your self-growth and your self-confidence.
Can you talk to us about having that nourishing conversation? Mm-hmm. How do you sense and how do you gravitate towards that nourishing conversations? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes people tend to gravitate towards that confirmatory bias. There is this where you want to go and hear what you are thinking, and when the alternative is presented, you struggle. How do you gravitate towards that? When you see it or when you hear it, how do you run for that or go for that?
First thing, I must see it that in life there are three circles. The first circle is you. Then I would call the inner circle the people who are nearest and dearest, and then there's that broader network. We need to start off with the one relationship which will be you'll have for your whole life, which is the one with yourself. That is actually primary. The relationship you should have with yourself is friend, ally, beloved, ambassador.
With yourself.
With yourself. Because people often say life's giving them a tough time and so on. They're often then the first person to kick themselves. So what's your relationship with yourself? Check that. Do you mean very often with happens?
Yeah.
Right. So the first relationship is really develop a nurturing relationship with yourself. Care about and appreciate who you are today. Forget about tomorrow for one moment. Today, really give yourself acceptance that you're doing your best. You've
been in the moment.
Yeah. Whatever's happened to you in the past, just decide that you're going to try your best to be kind to yourself today, and that you're worthy at least of self-love. So really all love really begins with this thing about self-love. Then what we can do is look at the inner circle. Now I see the inner circle as a bit like a rowboat. You can't have people who are rocking the boat in the rowboat.
I hear you.
So sometimes on this self-development journey, certain relationships get turned down or whatever. It's a bit like, I liken it, when you leave secondary school and you're relieved that some of those so-called friends you can leave behind. It's a bit like that. So we've got to become very, very discerning, So first of all, that relationship with yourself, and then spot the people who are really kind. So at certain times in life, it might mean that you, for a while, need to turn down those relationships, and also spot what's the degree of closeness that with all of your relationships that is most nutritious to you and everyone else. So be it family and friends. Sometimes you get even a family where people, if they spend too much time, too close, I love my family so much, but if I spend more than, they know this. If I spend more than, we love each other so much, but if I spend more than 5 hours, it ain't going to happen. I've got to leave. So you've got to get to know what's the degree of proximity that works works for you and everybody else. And I mean that seriously, in every relationship, really, and try and nurture and have everybody's well-being at heart. But then that will be to be discerning with those relationships and the people who will be honest. Start off with your strengths also. What are the things that you're good at? Build from your strengths. It's a bit like if somebody was going into athletics, I'm not going to turn a bodybuilder into a swimmer or swimmer necessarily into a golfer, whatever. What are the things you're good at? Give yourself credit, work from your strengths.
Right.
And then you're going to be in a better position to work on the development areas or the areas that are weak at. Sometimes you might not even need to work on them. Sometimes you may not even need to work on them if you begin to appreciate your strengths. Do you know what I mean?
I get it. Talk to us about the third one. You talked about the relationship with the self, and you talked about the inner circle one.
Yeah.
Then can you give us the third circle, please?
And then the third is your broader network. So people often say that your net worth is your network. Collect outstanding, talented people of all backgrounds. So in my very first job, for example, my job just involved that I had to get to know everybody from the post room to the chief executive. Build rich relationships with everybody. Your goodwill bank account with everybody should always be in credit.
Can you say that again?
Your goodwill bank account with everybody you meet on this planet should always be in credit.
Interesting.
So be kind, be caring. Doesn't mean you necessarily want all those people in the inner circle, but you're kind and you accept. So this journey of really self-love means, first of all, I begin to embrace myself. The invitation that's I begin to embrace life itself with all of its ups and downs. Then it enables me to begin to embrace others. On a practical level, spot different, build good working relationships. If you're at work, get to know everybody, treat them kindly and so on.
Right.
You're going to need to know somebody in finance or somebody in thingy to get the invoice cleared or somebody in this team or that team. So the quality of our life is so directly dependent on the quality of relationships that we have with people. So you don't want to upset the neighbor, but have a good working relationship. I'm not necessarily making your best friend, but you've got to have a good, amiable, practical working relationship with them. Then whenever you're in trouble, people will help you and you'll be able to, and that's when, life sensitizes. Have you ever had that experience where you are all at sea, something's not happening, and then life kind of does you a favor because your goodwill bank account is in
credit, as you said. Yeah, wonderful. Now I'm learning as I'm taking my own notes, so thank you very much for this. This has been like a 20+ year journey for you since you started your business, and that's Sole Trader Biz. I've got that right?
Well, Sole Trader is based on the Sole Trader is my business is really Rasheed, Ogunlaru, coach, speaker, author, and Sole Trader is like the offshoot. It's based on for people who are starting or running their own business. Is that
absolutely
side shoot?
So during that journey, positives and lows. What's your favourite memory related to the subject that you're on the journey that you're on now? What was any kind of story that sort of uplifting?
I think I'm going to say two things. One is will seem like a bizarre thing to say, but it's true. And then I'll say something. I think one is like every day, getting up. If I get up, if I wake up, if I'm alive, if I'm breathing, then that's a blessing. I come from that school. Generally, that's the thing I've learned, that start every day with a large bowl of gratitude. So to be very honest, I'm just so grateful for the gift of life and for being here. That's been my greatest relation. And that has been the greatest win. I was saying that if you listen quietly enough to life, it will whisper its secrets to you. And that's really what's happened along my journey. I've just listened to life. There's two choices. You can either fight it or if you can embrace it. If you fight it, you'll lose because you're one of it. If you embrace it, though, suddenly magic happens. Every day is wonderful. I'll give you one example. One happened, somebody emailed me on Wednesday. They said, I came along to your Networking for Success event at the British Library. I run a number of now free online events, but somebody came along to this networking event I run monthly called Networking for Success. They said, I came along in 2018 and you told us at the end, you dropped an email afterwards saying to everyone to follow up. He said, I did follow up. I followed up with a particular lady who was there. I had to leave early from the event because I had to go to another event. Followed up with a particular lady just to let you know that we're engaged to be married and we're getting married.
Wow. Oh, wow. Amazing.
Oh, my goodness.
And I'm like, wow. So for me,
really?
Yeah, it's a true story. It's a true story. It's a true story. You know,
so you can add to your bow matchmaker now.
Cupid services. Cupid services.
Story.
The irony of that, you know, is that what I'm really talking about in the work is one's relationship with oneself and then magic does happen. You see, if I
energy.
have that rich relationship with life itself, then I'm no longer battling it. If you think about it, that for so often we're caught in a battle with ourselves, our own mind, our own. I'm just inviting people to look afresh, and it's not about. We're mistaught that success leads to fulfillment. Success is dependent on so many things. It may come, it may go. It's like a trophy. It will rust eventually. Fulfillment, though, in broad terms, you know, success is something we spend our whole life looking for, and happiness is something we spend our whole life overlooking. Success is something we spend our whole life looking for, and happiness is something we spend our whole life overlooking. The gift of just this life itself, of embracing life, being kind to ourselves, seeing the gifts and the talents we already have and working from there is all I'm saying. I'm just inviting people to look at things afresh.
Talking freshness and talking everything to do with looking at things freshly. What is it that you're doing now? Some of your training, some of your programs you're doing online that people can log in and get into your services. I know you do trainings with the British Library, and you do personal coaching, you do speaking at conferences and all that. What's going on now? What are some of the services available that one can access? People in business, people individuals wanting to access your services, and particularly when you finish, please talk about the book, the Soul Trader book, please. All yours.
Okay, so thanks so much. Well, there's a lot of things I do. But first of all, I'm very passionate about things that anybody can access, because when I first started, I'd been a struggling singer, so I didn't have much money. So I know what that's like. So I know not everybody has those resources. So first of all, you know, if you search me on a well-known search engine or via my website, you'll find the links to things like my YouTube, where I've got loads of self-development and career development. There's lots of things and so on. That's very, very dear to my heart. There's also a Soul Trader podcast and things like that. And even the soul-trader.biz website has got lots of free stuff for people who are starting running their own business. I run a number of, at the moment, free webinars for people that Soul Trader, which is for anybody who's thinking about or starting running their own business. I'm here on camera, but most people may not just be listening to this on audio, so I might just be holding this up just for myself. But so I run Soul Trader, which is for anyone who's planning to be their own boss. Networking Success, which teaches you to network effectively and authentically. That person who just got married came along to the in-person version of that. And also, because of the tough time that the creative industries have been going on, anyone who's a creative, I run a thing called Creatives Talk Space, which is a monthly gathering for people who are creatives and artists and so on. All of those dates you can find on the rosaru.com and website on the events page. So lots of those things are free. But in terms of most of my time these days is spent coaching, leadership coaching, coaching leaders and so on within our organizations. I do a lot of work with, for example, the NHS. I do conference speaking and so on. So most of my time these days is with organizations, because I'm really passionate about making the working lives of people richer and so on. So I do conference speaking, I do leadership coaching and workshops to develop people within our own organizations. But there are some books, but I also got books and audio talks on my website that people can, some of the things that I've been talking about, like my Become Who You Are audio talk and my Gift of Inner Success, are really good, useful things for people who want some of that stuff. But if you've got no budget, the YouTube channel's got heaps of stuff, including I put on there my whole Gift of Inner Success series. So I'm reading the Gift of Inner Success book. But for people who are starting running their own business, Soul Trader, I would recommend. It's a book to help you build a business low cost from your heart. How do I build an authentic business my way from my heart?
You know, this Soul Trader book, read it a few times, and you talk of authenticity and being true to self and being true to self. Can you throw just a searchlight on that, being that honest and truthful with yourself and being able to come to the table with yourself and not compromising? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, this is beautiful because it takes us back to kind of where we began. So really, if we think about it, that each and every one of us are, we find ourselves here in life, isn't it? With our characteristics, life has configured us, okay? And with all of the ideas and beliefs that we've gathered or found over a period of time. So the first tip is to really just be kind and gentle with yourself and begin to perhaps even get to know yourself and again, or be, sometimes there's a process of really getting to know yourself, beginning to appreciate yourself. What are my strengths, what are my skills, what are my talents, what are my passions, and so on. That can be really revelatory because it might well be that I'd always felt I need to be like this, I need to be like that. Remember that I would say this, self-confidence, self-esteem, self-belief, all these words begin the word self. They have nothing to do with anybody else.
I love that.
Self.
I love that.
Self.
I love that.
Self-esteem. Self.
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 Self. Rasheed, anytime we talk, anytime you come on board, anytime we engage, you come with something different. And thank you so very much for the 3 circles you talked about: the self, the inner, the self, your inner circle, and the outer circle, and everything you shared. Can you please show your book again, please? I want to see the book again. Yeah. Guys, you can get this book on Rasheed's website, www.rasaru. Please carry on. You want to say something?
Yeah, you can get it sold, trade, or just on Amazon. You can get this on.
You can get it on Amazon, right?
You
can get this book on Amazon, and please get it. Please get this book. You are going to like it. Rasheed, you got something to say?
Yeah, I was just going to say, this stuff about, self-love, begin to learn to listen to your own inner voice. Really begin to listen to your own inner voice, because there can be so much wisdom. So really begin to really listen to your own inner voice. So sometimes you might need to, get out of the house and just begin to begin to foster times of silence, stillness, so you can begin to, instead of hearing all the noise, sometimes you might need to switch everything off and just begin to hear your own inner voice, perhaps for the first time. Listen to your heart, really begin to listen to your heart, trust your instinct. If you think about it, we have so much inner wisdom. If we really listen to ourselves, the body will tell us when we're hungry. The body will tell us when it's time to sleep. The body will, there's so many of these things, but often we get out of step with that. The body will tell us. There is that. Listen to your body, not everybody.
I love that. Wow. Listen to your body, not everybody. Guys, listen, it's been wonderful. It's been beautiful. It's been fantastic. As anytime, please visit www.rasaru.com. And for those who've been listening on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube, I have really enjoyed Rasheed's time with us. Rasheed, myself, and Simone would have to say thank you to you. We've enjoyed your time. We've enjoyed everything that you have for us. And we would get back to you at some point. Go on your website, enjoy it. And it's been such a brilliant time, Rasheed. We're looking forward to doing this again.
Yeah, most certainly. Have a lovely day. Thank you so much, Simone. Thank you so much, Kojo. Have a lovely day, everybody. Take good care.
Guys, listen.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
We've really enjoyed ourselves. We're literally hitting into the last minute of we saying bye-bye to you. Simone, my heart is smiling. Simone, my heart is glad. What do you have to say?
I had a great time. Learned a lot. Still going to refer back to my notes and try and, apply this to my life.
I have enjoyed it. Simone has enjoyed it. I know you've enjoyed it. Please, let's do this on Monday morning again. It's been Bonti Amwako and it's been Simone Uncle. Thank you so very much. And we would be back on Monday. Let's go and say bye-bye to our friends, and we'll come back to you next week, Monday morning, exactly at 7, and we will get it going. Thank you very much once again, and it's been a fantastic morning. Once again, my name is Kojo Bonti Amwako, and it's been Simone Uncle. Bye-bye for now. Have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye for now.
All the best.
It's about empowerment, education, and entertainment. Fantastic Radio UK, the home of possibilities.
Come in.
Right.
Ah, Mr. Pilkington, and how are we today?
Yeah, I'm all right, Doctor. Yeah, I've just come for my checkup.
Okay, then pop your pants off.
What?
Just pop your pants off.
Oh, I've got to take my pants off.
Well, because I have to pop my finger up your to check your prostate gland.
Don't worry about it.
Well, I am worried about it because prostate cancer kills 10,000 men every year in Britain.
You can check that out if I get any symptoms.
Well, there aren't always symptoms, and symptoms do vary from man to man. So the best way to check it out is I just pop my finger up there
I'm really
and have a feel. Just don't worry about it.
Is that it?
Yeah.
It's not that bad.
No.
I don't know why he was worried. You probably saved his life there.
Does he have to be here?
He's just a mate. Don't worry about him. He's just watching me at work.
For more information, visit the Prostate Cancer Charity website. Real men know all about it.
Come on, gather round now, look now. How many times did you premeditate what you thought was your fate? Cause you couldn't just wait, you had to have it the way that you thought in your mind. But in the end, everything came in time. But before the time, you was losing your mind. You was racing and rushing and falling behind. But let me tell you about God and the way that she works. I mean the way that he works.